But the senator, while indoctrinated, could not explain his toxicity.
Itari? Whiskey? Ah, Itari, you could never lock my secret. Oh no, suddenly, don't leave me.
Let's begin.
Indeed.
All right, hello everybody, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio and the Fireside Chat. My name is Brian, and I am here with Clownfish TV, which, for those of you guys who don't know, it's basically made up of two main hosts. There might be a team behind the scenes that we don't know about, though. Kneon and Geeky Sparkles, and they're both on one channel, so if you only see one face, that's why. So, hello Kneon and Geeky Sparkles, how are you guys doing?
Good, good.
Yeah, we're good.
Thanks for having us on.
Oh no, thanks for coming on. Thanks for coming on. So, actually, Clownfish TV, tell me, like, why'd you guys do this? Like, initially, like, why did you say I want to make a channel where we talk about cartoons and toys and stuff? I'm, you know, just out of curiosity. How'd you get started?
I was mad.
Well, no, that's not really. Yeah, that's how we got started talking about, you know, a lot of stuff we talk about now, but. Originally, we just, you know, we kind of it was me and my son playing video games.
Yeah.
And we did some toy reviews and stuff like that. And we always, you know, we always anticipated we would use the YouTube channel like someday. Like it was just kind of there. We didn't really hit YouTube that hard. Now we did, you know, work in comics for a number of years. And we're like, well, eventually we'll get around to, you know, trying this YouTube thing. And then, you know, we got pulled into stuff and started.
Then I got mad.
Videos, and Geeky got mad. And you know, apparently people like it when she gets angry.
Apparently.
So yeah, so it was a complete accident. I mean, we never intended to you know, really do much with YouTube, and certainly not the kind of content that we've been doing lately. So
and
that's pretty fair, right?
Mm.
Yeah, no, that sounds fair. And so you basically just were someone who, you know, you had your little hobby, you did a little channel for it, and then you just kind of like, I don't know, it worked out for you, you enjoyed doing it, you kept doing it, and then a bunch of stuff happened that I'm assuming you guys did not see coming.
Well, yeah, kind of. I mean, okay, so we've been working in comics for like, God, like what, 12 years, 10?
So you actually work in the comics industry?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I actually left by my own will, you know, but we worked in comics, and you know, there's some strange going-ons in the comic book industry, and
mostly we left because it didn't pay.
Yeah, it didn't pay very much.
So...
Yeah, it didn't pay very much. So, you know, but then, you know, a lot of stuff happened in comics, and we just thought, you know, we'd give our armchair opinion on what we thought was going on in regards to the comic book industry and where it's at right now. And you know, it didn't take much to get you know, to get on people's bad side, unfortunately. But the funny thing is there are so many fans out there, so many comic book readers, you know, that I guess, you know, this kind of material resonates with. You know, they feel like they've been kind of I don't know, left behind.
I don't know. I just think we always kind of call out crap. It's kind of
is that what we're going?
That's what I do. That's how I go at it. Let's call out some crap. But yeah.
Yeah, calling out crap can be pretty cathartic, to put it lightly. Yeah. So for guys that are watching, if you are new to the channel, please give us a sub because I see some new faces in there. Someone said brushable hair in the chat.
That's
and
what I'm gonna be known for.
So, and someone else said best anime crossover. Well, thank you. I guess Carlos knows a bit about us at HBR. But if you guys are new here, give you know, Honey Badger live streams a subscribe, and also hit the like button. Like button is basically the way that we reach more people, and we want to reach as many people as possible with these conversations. So I'm just taking a moment to give a short little station identification like they used to when I was a kid and I used to watch the regular boob tube. So yeah, be sure to do that. Okay, so going back to your content. So yeah, you did these. I mean, I watched a few of them, and in particular, what I was interested in was the animation stuff. You guys have talked a lot about She-Ra.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen it because I canceled my Netflix subscription. Ooh, I don't know. Back when I think it was right before Jessica Jones season 2 was coming out. It was after I watched the Punisher series, and I was like, okay, I'm done with Netflix. I don't use it for anything. That is where She-Ra lives. Is that right? I just want to make sure I'm correct on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's on Netflix.
Okay, so there are no toys for this series.
Not yet. Not that we know of. They had, now everybody keeps saying, well, Super 7's making toys. Super 7, as far as we know from an interview that he stated, they were just making the ones for the convention. Mattel hasn't said anything. Doesn't mean they're not making toys. It's just that they have other toy lines coming out that they're talking about. It's just weird they wouldn't mention that at all.
Yeah,
so who knows? No, so far, no toys.
And go ahead.
It's not very toyetic. I was gonna say it's not a very toyetic show.
It's not very toy.
No.
Toyetic? Is that a technical term for people who work on the inside?
No, that actually is. That was actually Star Wars when they were
really?
shopping
Okay,
Star Wars around back in the 70s. Kenner said that the Star Wars movie looked toyetic, that they could make toys out of it, and that's why they picked up the license. Yeah.
Oh, that's freaking hilarious. I'm gonna remember that, toyetic. So then, I'm gonna ask you this because I've seen some She-Ra stuff. Maybe you guys can help me with this question. It's the same question I've asked about some comics that I've reviewed. Who is She-Ra for? What's the audience?
Well, that's a good question. It depends who you ask. Mostly they try to argue that She-Ra is for it's not for you, it's for the children. But that's not for the children. So, you would think it was for any fans of She-Ra. You'd think it was for, a younger audience, as they keep claiming. But they have some themes in it that are, it's hard to tell. Like some of the stuff they're having a prom and talking about horsies, and the next minute they're like, implying relationships and stuff. It's just, I don't know who it's for. I mean, how about you?
Tumblr.
Yeah, Tumblr.
Yeah, it looks like it's for Tumblr. I don't think that's going to be... Do you know if it's doing well? Like, I don't know if there's a way to record that stuff. Like, I was thinking, if someone buys a subscription to Netflix, does it pay for shows that they don't watch? Or does it not matter? I'm genuinely curious, because you could, theoretically, if someone's paying for Netflix, there could be shows on there that no one watches, but Netflix leaves up because they believe in them or whatever. But because it's a subscription model, they never have to take them down. Or, like, I just wonder about that. Like, you have to worry about ratings when you're doing a regular TV show, because TV is considered to be, for all intents and purposes, free. We're just going to use that abstractly. I mean, obviously you have to watch ads that go with it, but the ratings matter because the advertisers will advertise if the show does well. If it doesn't, then they won't, and you can't pay for it. But on Netflix, the audience, or the people who watch it, they pay for it. So how do you know if shows like She-Ra are successes or not?
Well, you don't, because they don't let those numbers out there.
No, they don't share. They don't share their ratings or downloads. It's all internal. I mean, the only way I can think. I mean, again, looking at it from the outside, is maybe it works like Amazon Prime Video, where producers or studios are paid like by the minute that things are streamed. That's the only, and then that comes out of the revenue from subscribers. That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, I'm not sure how it works either. I mean, there has to be some money given to these places to actually do the shows. I honestly don't know.
Okay.
We've tried to find that information about how it's doing ratings wise, and we weren't able to find it. Even in we looked at top 100 shows, it wasn't in the list. So I don't know.
Oh, of course it isn't. I remember when that was another thing. Like when I had Netflix, you were actually able to give shows, movies, whatever, a 1 to 5 star rating and like leave comments. So if you liked it, and I think it was when Amy Schumer's comedy special came out on Netflix, they removed the ability to do star ratings, and instead, I think it was just thumbs up, thumbs down, or not even that. It was something else. It was a completely different model, and the way that they recommended new content had nothing to do with what you've watched. It was simply what they decided they were going to recommend. They got away from people being able to essentially vote on what they liked. And the Schumer special also was right around the same time. I'm not saying it's because of that, but it's convenient, the timing of this. But they also removed the ability to write comments, and that was also eliminated. So people couldn't say whether or not something was good. They couldn't talk about it. So it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, you know, it seems like Netflix more and more is sort of like force feeding people their own shows. Like when you boot up Netflix now, I know just on our Amazon stick, it immediately starts playing a trailer for whatever show they want to promote that week. So they really are, they sort of built, I think they sort of built the platform on the backs of these other studios, and now they're all about their own IP.
But you can't even review it. And then when you go to places like Rotten Tomatoes to read reviews, well, that whole thing is just a joke because it's all, big bought off bunch of crap. So
Rotten Tomatoes is bought and paid for.
Really?
I think
it's horrible.
I mean, it's just speculation, but there's such a divide between a disconnect between audiences
and critics,
audience scores, and critical scores.
Huge disconnect.
Huge, just in the last 2 or 3 years. I mean, again, I think it started with Ghostbusters 2016, and then sort of The Last Jedi. Now we're seeing it with She-Ra, Doctor Who, other shows that are very divisive.
You're seeing campaigns too, almost like campaigns to either raise or lower the scores. Like somebody gets a group together and they're all like, there's all these like 5-star, 1-stars with like no comments, or the comments are like, something ridiculous and, something with one word, whatever. With She-Ra, you saw it a lot, that it was doing badly. And so all these 5-star reviews started popping up, and they'd say things like, representation, or something had nothing to do, and that's what it said.
I think it's Tumblr. I think Tumblr is mobilizing. I think they were mobilizing to try to save.
Well, they were. Now Tumblr's kind of went.
Yeah, nobody cares. Yeah.
So yeah, now we're looking at the current state of things, the absolute state of our media, and the disconnect between journalists, I guess you could say, or people who are considered to be authorities on what's good and what isn't, and audiences, which obviously, if you look through history, there's always been a gap. I mean, if you look at, the films that made the most money versus the ones that won the Oscars, there was often, but not always, a big gap there as well. So, like, what you didn't really want to spend your time originally, anyways, making responses or discussing the politics of shows or toys or comics or things that are really considered to be leisurely geeky activities. There's no other way to look at it. Like I love video games, but I don't think I could make the case that video games are really, really crucially important to my development as a human being. I don't think I could make the case for that. All I can say is I like them, right? But it seems like this is where things are going. So what is the thing that got you, got Geeky Sparkles? What got you mad, as you say? You say you got mad. What was the thing you say, you know what, I gotta say something. This is bullshit. I gotta speak up.
Well, actually, it was comics first, because we worked in it for a while, and then the people were like, Kneon had did an article once talking about how the Marvel numbers were going south, and is this a problem? Is it something good? If Marvel goes down, what's going to happen to the industry? Not knowing there was this whole other thing going on, not knowing, even having any clue.
I had no idea.
And then from that, he got a bunch of his friends unfollowed him, and we got called alt-right Nazis when we lean left.
Yeah.
We got called his names, and so I was like, oh hell no. And that's when I started with that. And then with the She-Ra thing, I'm just like, I've loved She-Ra since I was a kid. And I was so excited when they said She-Ra's coming back. I'm like, yeah, She-Ra's coming back. And then I saw who the showrunner was, which we've had previous knowledge of this person. So I was like, oh crap, because I knew what was going to happen to it. Yeah. And then when I saw the character designs, and then it wasn't even the design so much as it was the attitude. Like you said, with the journalism, it was like immediately, if you didn't like it, that clearly meant that you are, this, that, this, that is, you're misogynist, you're sexist, you're some kind of a pervert who gets off on kids' toys. You know, it was this whole argument, and a lot of people didn't fall into that category. They were just like me, where they're old school fans and didn't like it. And you can't not like things that, you know, if they say you're supposed to like it, you're not allowed to not like it. It's just you're not allowed to. There's something wrong with you. And basically, our point is, I want to call out crap, but I also want to say, hey, look, if you like it, it's okay. If you don't like it, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with you either way. And I'm tired of the spin being, if you don't agree with us, there's something wrong with you, because that's just crap.
Yeah, that's kind of become the go-to defense, and it's only been the last like 2-3 years it's been really noticeable.
Oh yeah,
that the media, I guess the pop culture media, geek news, whatever you want to call these outlets, are basically the marketing plan is to attack fans. Like, they think by berating fans and telling them they're awful people, you know, that either they'll chase away the bad people, all these other acceptable, you know, quote unquote people will come in and take their place, or you will sort of bully people into submission, into liking something because, well, I don't want to be an awful person. I don't want to be called a Nazi or a bigot or a hate monger or, you know, whatever else. And it's terrible that our hobbies, you know,
Star Wars,
everything, it's become so political. Everything, it used to be escapism. People used to watch movies and read comic books, play video games to get away from the real world, because the real world sucks. You know, it sucks enough already. We don't need to
hear about politics all day. You don't need more.
We don't need more. We don't need, you know, and I kind of likened it to you know, the Bible tracks, the Jack Chick tracks, except, you know, with comic books.
We've said that.
You're being asked to pay for them. You're being asked to pay $4 to be preached at. You know, and that's what people are doing, and the fans are getting angry. Like, there's no, the studios, the publishers, I think they're starting to slowly come around to realize that, you know, you know, this is not the way to win over the fans. I think there was a generation or a micro generation of like interns or something that they left in that had these political ideals, and they kind of left them run rampant, and the damage has been done. We look at the damage done with Ghostbusters. We look at which they're, you know, reverting it now. They're trying to go back and fix it. We saw the damage done with Star Wars. And again, it's not even so much the product. It's not even the product. Like, okay,
it's the way they behave towards fans.
Right. It's the marketing. And same with She-Ra. The problem we had with She-Ra wasn't that, hey, the show is obviously geared for Tumblr people.
I had a problem with that too. But
well, Geeky had, But I'm saying, I mean, if they just put it out there and say, hey guys, you know, it's very different from the original, and we just hope you'll like it too. And if not, you know, it is what it is. No, it was the attack on the fandom before the show even premiered. The journalists were already like, well, this is going to make all those men just,
it was all men,
because you know, that was the target audience all along. It's going to make them so upset. And then when the original She-Ra voice actress Melanie Britt actually had to get involved, and who, she's very progressive, said enough is enough. Stop attacking the fans. This is dishonest marketing. You know, and that's really kind of where we're at with things like now. Why do the fans have to be attacked if they don't like something? I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's a weird kind of purity testing. It's like, well, they're basically trying to, they want to put out what they want to put out. They have like the people who create these shows, that write these comics, that are involved in all these levels of media. And I don't know if you noticed the pattern, but most of this is stuff that is mostly male dominated. Like not that, you know what I'm saying? Like, yes, I watched She-Ra too. Because it came on after He-Man, and it was basically the same toy line. They just tried to divide it. I think back in the day, they tried to divide it and say, this is the girl line, this is the boy line. And I was like, yeah, but the toys are compatible. Why would I pass on this? You know, like I think the She-Ra doll was basically the same body as the Evil Lyn and the Teela. So why wouldn't I, you know, use it? It's just more toys. Like that's how I saw it when I was 11. But it's what I notice is that these are all areas that, you know, mostly we're talking about video games, comics, mainly superhero comics, because comics there's been an audience there's been comics that exist for every possible audience, but superhero comics specifically tended to be a male-dominated area in terms of like the interest group, you know. That doesn't mean girls couldn't read it, but it's just if you looked at the numbers, it was going to be mostly guys that read them, and then there were other comics that girls tended to read as well. And this seems to be happening in all these areas where there are more boys or more men investing. Tabletop gaming, for example, you know, not just video games, but like D&D and miniatures and all this other stuff. And these people put this stuff out that is based on their idea of how it should be. So they believe that they can essentially make the market as opposed to respond to the market. So most products are made in response to the market. People say, well, you know, we need, I want to, or they try something. They take a risk. Transformers might have been a risk if GoBots hadn't come first, where they basically say, oh, people want to play with toys, or boys want to play with toys that transform from robots to cars. Let's make toys. But they never said you have to buy this. They just put it out there and they said, well, hopefully this is a hit. And it was, right, in that case. And it sort of expanded from there. But what it seems like people are doing now that make products is they believe that they can do whatever they want to it. And because they like what they've made, but they don't listen to people outside their bubble in terms of what their taste might be, and they don't know what the audience wants, when it doesn't look like it's going to respond their way, they just convince themselves that it's not their fault and they've done nothing wrong. It's the children's fault. It's like the Skinner argument, you know. It's the children who are wrong. Could I be out of touch? And I think that's what happened with the She-Ra thing and so many other things. Like, I just read a Harley Quinn book on the show last week, and it was a Harley Quinn comic where she's got all these cats and she needs to get rid of them. Yeah. Oh, you saw that one. I think there was actually a joke at your expense in there. I don't know if you saw it, but there's a lot of inside jokes. And somebody in the audience said, because there was one joke where the guys at the end of the book, what these I don't know what they were, male MRA cat owners or something. So they're all leaving, and one of them says, let's go write, what do you say? Let's go write angry notes at toy companies. And I was like, what is that a reference to? Like, I didn't get it. And somebody said, oh, that might be Clownfish TV. So I think you guys got a little bit of fame. You may have been immortalized in the Harley Quinn books with that comment. So I don't know if you guys have, because I know that you do toy reviews too, right? So yeah. So that's what I think is happening. You know, that's what I've noticed. I think that they believe that they can create the market instead of listening to the customer base, or at least feeling them out to see what they might like. And when it doesn't work out that way, they blame the customers for it, for not having, I guess, their taste or liking what they like.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think they want to choose their audience, and they want their audience to be of like-minded people that are acceptable, or they want to, they realize the power of media. And media is very powerful. Entertainment's very powerful, and they want to make more people like themselves using media form their political opinions, etc. Using media. That's my take. I think again, it's comes back to do you put the product out there and let audiences decide whether or not it's acceptable, or do you force people to like? And we see a lot of that with even. I think the bigger entertainment industry, they kind of like take away options. They take away options. They're like, you will like this. You will like this version of whatever it is we're.
Well, I think too, it's a matter of, since there's so much being redone over and over again, and you're not getting a lot of original things. If you have an idea, or you want to push an agenda and something that you own, that's your own thing, that's cool. But if you're a writer and you're being hired, or an artist and you're being hired to work on a character that's already an existing character, you have to keep in mind that there is a certain set thing this character has already been established to be, and there's already a fan base for that character. So when you're writing this character, you might want to take it in this direction, but if it doesn't fit the character, then you're going to have backlash, because people have, supported this character for years. They have a vested interest in this character. You don't own that IP, somebody else does. So you kind of owe it to that character to at least stay true to that character, somewhat. And I think the problem we're having now is there's so much that's redone that these people aren't making new things. They're just repurposing old things. And then that's when it becomes a problem. And before it even comes out, they know there's going to be a problem, because they know that people aren't going to like it. So immediately they're combative, and it's about, how dare you, pee on my vision. I'm a visionary, why don't you get it?
That makes something new.
Make something new. Right.
Yes, and I think that this reappropriation, as you were saying, they basically take something, and these are not things that are like recent. These are things that have existed for decades, and they have defined pop culture. And they especially affect nerds, but they affect everyone in a way. Like Star Wars, I'm sorry, but Star Wars, I think Star Wars is dead. I think they've killed it. I don't think that it's going to recover from this trilogy. That's my opinion. I think that it's so lost the spirit of what it was that I don't think we can ever get it back. I think Star Trek is on its way to doing the same thing from what I've seen. And I I didn't watch Star Trek Discovery, which was that last show that came out. But from what I heard, from real diehard Trekkies that have been watching it, and these people didn't even like when they remade Star Trek with those last couple of movies. And I get it, because those things are like, the spirit of it is just out the window. Like the only thing Star Trek about those movies is that there's a ship called an Enterprise and there's a guy named Kirk, and it looks like it. It's sort of like the a lot of these remakes. I agree. The problem partly is there isn't a lot of creativity. There aren't people trying new things. They're basically taking old things that have already established themselves as successful, and they've already made a mark, and they're basically trying to it's like trying to cut out. It's trying to like do this thing where they can make their statement on easy mode, so they can like use something that everyone loves, and then they can just like start using it for their own purposes. And they figure if you do that, if you just like, appropriate Star Wars or appropriate Star Trek or She-Ra or Thundercats or, whatever, then you can get right to the people, the audience. You automatically have a large audience because they're waiting for new material, and you can just start telling them what you want to tell them. But it doesn't work out, because if it doesn't feel like, if it doesn't have the spirit of what the original source material was, the fans will recognize it right away. And that's when they attack them, because they say, well, you don't like She-Ra, you must be a pedophile. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's they attack their fans, and they did it with Marvel Comics, they did it with Star Wars, they did it with Ghostbusters, they've done it with all this other stuff, I think Battlefield 5, it's the same thing. Like people had expectation that those games were a certain way, and it's because there is this agreed upon kind of canon that people think canon is important to people who are invested in a franchise. And if you mess with it too much, then you will get blowback. Michael Bay, I don't even have to talk about SJW content to make this point. Michael Bay did that with the Transformers movies. He basically made them so different that even though he had the voice actor for Optimus Prime, Peter, I forget his
Cullen.
last name. Peter what?
That was Peter Cullen.
Yes. Peter Cullen. Even though they had him doing the voice, it didn't matter, because everyone could tell that was basically an empty shell of a film that was just trying to cash in on its name, and there was nothing else about that was any good. Now, yes, granted, it made a lot of money anyway because people were desperate for something. But, diehard fans did not find that it was good. I thought those movies were awful. So it's not about the politics per se, but I think that the people who are very political, they tend to take these things a lot more seriously, because it's to them, this isn't just the She-Ra show, right? This is a chance to talk about something that they think is important, or make their Tumblr fanfics real, and they can basically force that on people. And if they don't respond favorably, then there must be something wrong with them morally, because what they're doing in their mind is absolutely, I guess they would believe it's absolutely benevolent, and that they should be happy for that.
Yeah, I actually liken it to, and this is with no disrespect to Christians at all, but I liken it to like Christian rock, where they basically kind of have taken a medium, and then they're using it to push an ideology. And if you call it out and say, hey, that music kind of sucks, not because it's Christian, because the music just kind of sucks, then you're an awful person, But it's the same kind of thing. It's like we joke about the pill and the ice cream. It's like an ideology in the ice cream and make people swallow it.
And like Ben and Jerry's is doing.
But you're right. It is very easy. It's very easy to take a seat that's already been warmed. And take it over. It's very hard to build the chair yourself.
Absolutely. And I will say this, though, in defense of Christian rock, not that we have a lot of Christian rockers in the audience. I have no idea who here listens to Creed, but At least Christian rock bands are their own ideas. They didn't like. Yeah. It's not like Christians went in and forced Jay-Z or forced the Strokes or the Hives to like make music for them. Like you know what I'm saying? Like it's not like they just suddenly went back and they said Nirvana's getting back or the Foo Fighters are getting back together, but they're gonna sound like this now. It's not that. Like they're doing their own thing at least. Somebody said remember POD? Yeah. I remember, this is the thing, people are saying Creed is awesome. It's funny how, the segue real quick, it's funny how Christian rock got into the mainstream and I didn't know it. I just thought, wow, this guy sounds a lot like Eddie Vedder and, that was it. I was just, and then like, I'm like, oh, this is kind of catchy. I think one Creed song was in a movie soundtrack or something. What was that animated movie that, oh shit, what was it called? It was an animated film made by Don Bluth. It took place on a spaceship.
Oh, Titan AE.
Titan AE. That's the one. That's the
underrated.
One.
It was actually
pretty good.
No, I like that movie. It was a good movie. But I didn't realize that Higher was actually on the soundtrack for that. So there you go. It has a Christian rock in that movie. That's different. But anyway, so what? I guess I was gonna ask you something. I kind of like lost it for a second there. What else? I guess. About animation. I saw this thing happen, and I want to know if you guys had looked into this because I think this is really worrying. So in the animation industry, and I also want to make sure I'm not wrong. So I don't know how knowledgeable you guys are on this, but in the animation industry, I found out that there's a group called Women in Animation. And Women in Animation is basically like an advocacy group that has their CEO is the same woman. I don't know her name off the top of my head, but she's the same woman that's working on that Crunchyroll Guardian Spice.
High Guardian Spice.
High Guardian Spice.
Yeah.
Margaret, I can't remember her last name. I know who you're talking about there.
Yeah. Yes. And she's also the CEO of this Women in Animation thing. And this is all correlation, no causation. I don't have any evidence to prove it, but I just found that this is an interesting set of circumstances. So WIA's main mission is to ensure that in the creative fields of animation, there is a 50-50 divide between male and female animators. And currently, I think women make up about 25% of people who are in the creative end of animation. And of course, this is in, the America and the West, right? Who knows what it is in Korea and Japan? I guess they didn't look into it. So
higher, actually, I think it's higher.
Higher, more women, you mean, or more men? More women? Yeah, probably, because I think it probably is true. So they have that as their main mission, and then it was. I recently learned that WIA is working very closely with the Animators Guild, AG, I believe it is, and the Animators Guild is essentially like a union for animation, and they're the ones that essentially supposed to protect men, the men and women who work in animation, that from things like unfair firing or bad treatment. It's a union, right? So
right.
Then, like around the same time that I learned about that, there was this MeToo thing where a bunch of people in animation signed this open letter. It was a whole lot of people that are really big names, And that open letter was supposed to address a really big problem with harassment in that industry. And I noticed that in many, many other industries, now that MeToo has come out, there have also been lots of other women that work in the industry and men who have come forward to say that there is a problem with sexual abuse, harassment, misconduct, etc. within their industries. But it's all like video games, comics, all the nerdy stuff that we've brought up before. Even like tabletop gaming. Like there's a problem at the folks who at White Wolf Publishing that do Vampire the Masquerade, the folks at Wizards of the Coast. And so guys are losing their jobs all over the place. And I thought it was just, I thought it was really interesting that there was sort of this connection between these groups, WIA and the Animators Guild, and then the Me Too thing and all these men losing their jobs. In fact, the guy who worked on Skullgirls, the artist for that, he lost his job at his company. And we don't know why that is. So he hasn't said anything about it, but he no longer works at that company, and he's been very silent on the matter. And he's the guy, the main artist, like that is probably at that small game developing company. That is probably let's say the last guy you want to fire, because he's the guy who made Skullgirls and that other game Indivisible, which I believe, I don't know if that one actually finished. I think he did all the work for it, but it's not out yet. So I don't know if you guys know about that or if you have any thoughts on that. Like I said, I'm a guy on the outside. I don't know the inner workings of all this stuff, but I thought it was interesting and I thought I would share with you guys.
Do you want to say something?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I can't really comment on women in animation because I'm not a woman in animation. We do have people we know in the animation industry. I'm only somewhat familiar with it. I know we have some Clownfish TV viewers that have actually had more firsthand experience. I really can't comment on it. It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, obviously, there's a big push for more gender equality, and I think all media right now, more diversity in all media right now. I mean, as far as like collusion, I can't really comment on that.
That's fair.
We don't know. I mean, again, it's not a situation we've been in. We do have some viewers who actually are animators trying to break in, and they've said that they had theories as to what they thought was going on. But again, I really don't have any proof. I mean, if you're asking me if I think people are trying to push agendas in animation, absolutely. I think that's absolutely
sure.
That is because it's a huge platform, but I can't point any fingers at any specific individuals and say, well, that's the problem right there,
Oh yeah, no, I figure it's happening both, outside, like in the products, which we are obviously experiencing firsthand, as well as behind the scenes. It's highly likely that that's going on. But again, I can't prove it. And I thought I would ask. It's okay if you guys don't have anything to add to that. I thought I would put it out there. It's fine.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, we've kind of seen, in the comics side of things, again, not, pointing any specific figures, but there was definitely a shift in the comic book industry where it wasn't cool to be a certain kind of person and get a job in comics because they were looking for certain kinds of people to work in the industry, even if those people had never really worked in the industry before. And that's probably about 2013, 2014. I think it wasn't very cool to be an older married white couple. I think at that point, if you wanted to get a job in comics, not saying that, and I want to be clear, I want to be very clear on this. I'm not saying that people who have gotten work in comics since then that have not, been older, middle-aged white people didn't earn it. What I'm saying is there definitely was a push, I think, to find certain kinds of people to work on projects. And, that's probably the case in animation too.
I'm sure it's cross.
Is that a fair?
I'm sure several
I'm
industries. I'm sure it's the same thing. Different industry.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair. Okay, so I got some super chats I'm going to go ahead and read out. You guys can send us a super chat if you like, if you want to ask. Just comment, ask a question, whatever. If you want to make sure that I get it, though, that's the way. Because I know that people are posting like crazy because we're streaming to multiple platforms at the same time. So the DCV Titan gives us $5 Canadian, which is, like $2.50 or something. And he says, critics have always been crap. There were some that panned Underworld, that's the movie, because the werewolves weren't scary. It wasn't marketed as a horror film. I don't know. I just didn't care for Underworld at all, but okay. I don't think that the werewolves aren't scary thing is a good argument though. So I agree with you there. Chris Stewart gives us $10 and says, you know what I really hate when it comes to this sort of thing? Geeky controversies that weren't even vaguely political suddenly being made suddenly being made so because geeks equals right wing. Like, I remember this one leftist Fire Emblem fan complaining about how the localization of Fates made a sympathetic character look like a simple gold digger, but he immediately assured everyone he wasn't a right-winger. Oh, okay. Yeah, I get that, Chris Stewart. That's a paradigm that's created by the people making the content. And it's really one of the most frustrating things because, there are these thought-terminating cliches that the people that you know, make this stuff that are going to use against you if you have criticisms that are absolutely valid and not even at all based in politics, which I think most people who have a criticism or commentary or whatever, even if it's just a concern, like, you know, somebody could come out and say that the teaser trailer for the new Ghostbusters that's going to be coming out next year, maybe they're still concerned that it's going to be more of the same, or that maybe it's been too long. Maybe it's got nothing to do with politics. Maybe they're just like, well, you know, the actors aren't the same guys they used to be, whatever. And there will be responses lashing out at them, and they'll use thought-terminating cliches like, oh, you're just a right-wing Trump supporter, which has nothing to do with like what you're talking about. But the point is, they just want you to shut up. That's why they do it. And one thing you should not do is make the go into a response acting like you have to apologize or distance yourself from a group of people that have nothing to do with what you're talking about, especially if you don't really know what it means, because the people using it on you likely don't know what it means. So I get that. You guys want to say anything to that super chat at all?
Yeah, I mean, well, you know, going back to the right wing thing, it's so funny because immediately, you know, we kind of got into this. Everybody's like, "Oh, you're just a bunch of right wing alt-right Nazis." I'm like, that's funny because we backed Barack Obama twice. We do lean left. We actually politically, you know, by American standards, we are center left.
We're center, yeah, center.
You know, and we've said before in our show, we're not, you know, huge Trump fans, but I'm not going to attack somebody who likes. I mean, what we're seeing is like basically they're using political affiliation to attack fans with. Like, if you like Donald Trump, you must be a Nazi. If you're a Republican, you must be a Nazi. If you support, you know, some of what Comicsgate stands for, you must be a Nazi. You must like Donald Trump. You must be on the right, and you must be a white guy.
You must hate women, even though I'm a woman.
And you know, they actually took the time to look. Because it's very easy to paint everyone with very broad brush strokes, right? Because very few people are, you know, solidly left, solidly right, whatever political. You know, it's funny because I talked to my one friend in England. And he was like, I don't even understand what any of you guys are talking about. You know, it's like whatever.
Yeah.
But you know, it's being used to dismiss people, to demonize groups of people, and just be like, well, they're just a bunch of alt-right trolls. If you don't like comic books, you're just as bad as the the KKK down in Charlottesville. You're just as bad as them. And then meanwhile, we found, just in our own experience, doing videos and you know, talking to more people in the community, that there is a very, very diverse group of people politically, ethnically, you know, gender. We've got straight folks, gay folks, trans folks, black folks, white folks, you know, all over the place. Very, very diverse group of people that are all being called alt-right, male, you know, Republican Nazis.
A lot of them aren't even from America.
A lot of them aren't even American, right? We got you know, like Mexican Trump supporters, I guess, and Asian Trump supporters, and it's just crazy. It's crazy how black and white, you know, they're making it seem. But again, it's easy to dismiss people when you don't see them as individuals.
We see them as label.
I mean, Mexican and Asian Trump supporters might as well be white males. I mean, let's face it. Also, you can have all of the black friends and Asian friends and female friends. Those are all just tokens to cover for your own racism and misogyny. So just stop. Stop. Just stop right now.
I bought Geeky on Fiverr.
I'm not real.
I just hired from
real women don't act like me.
$5 an
hour. Also, you know, like you know, it's funny that you should bring this up. I'm going to mention a study real quick that I read about recently. It was not a recent study, but I recently read about it. Jonathan Haidt, I believe, is the name of the guy who did this, and it was in his book, The Righteous Mind. And he's a center left guy, or at least he was at the time. I don't know, you know, if he still is. So that's important. But he conducted a study with a bunch of people where they basically had a questionnaire for a large group of people that were interviewed, and they asked random groups of people to answer the questions 3 different ways. And they had the questions were randomized themselves. Essentially, they had to answer a third of the questions as they as truthful, like they answer it the way they want to answer it, what they really believe. They ask them to answer a third of those questions, another third, as though they were what they imagine a right-winger, how they would answer it, and then they asked them to also answer a final third of the questions how they think a left-winger would answer the questions, okay? And they also got their political affiliation. So they asked them what their politics was, whether they were left, right, moderate. I think it was like on a scale, like, hard right, moderate, or, a moderate right, center, moderate left, hard left. And what was interesting, what they found out was that people on the moderate right and the far right were able to answer the questions as though they were leftists in a way that represented their beliefs. So they got it right. So basically they were able to accurately represent their arguments without, misrepresenting them or strawmanning them or exaggerating or anything like that. But the people on the left would not able to do it for the right. They got them all wrong on what they believe, which is interesting because a lot of the times, at least what we're seeing right now, and I'm being, this is the truth of what we're talking about. The leftists are the ones that are attacking people because they don't share the same political beliefs or whatever, and they're slinging these accusations of being right-wing Nazis, etc. But they don't actually know what it means, so they're using terms that they don't actually understand because they have a definition in their head as to what it means. Like the idea that there are people, at least on this scale, like on the scale that they believe exists, that hate people who don't look like them, that hate people of color, that hate gay people, that hate women. It sounds ridiculous, but a lot of them actually believe it's true. I don't know why they do, but I think it's because they're in their bubble. But that study sort of shows a lot, and Jonathan Haidt was talking about that. He's like, this is crazy. I didn't think that this is how it was going to turn out. I thought it was going to be the other way around, but he turned out that he was wrong on that.
Do you want to respond? Yeah, I would say, just from my perspective where I'm sitting as someone who's identified as left. For most of my adult life, the left is going further left, and you have people like myself that are feeling kind of left out in the cold because we don't neither my wife or I identify as conservatives, but the left is going so far left now that it makes it very hard to sometimes to find common ground. Like the things that used to what it used to mean to be a liberal 20 years ago. And what it means today are two totally different things. I mean, we have friends we've had for years that have, and I think that's just true. The politics, especially political climate in America, is insane. It's so polarizing. Just go to Facebook,
to be fair, conservatives have changed a lot too. Like, they become more socially liberal. They just do it slower, and so like you can tell, like if you look at, and I don't want to make this necessarily a political conversation, but I'm just using it as an example. Tomi Lahren, who is a young woman and a conservative, had a fundamental disagreement and lost her job on The Blaze because she did not agree with Glenn Beck, the guy he's much older. He's an old school conservative from back in the day. His beliefs are less, let's say, progressive than hers. And they're both conservatives, but she's more sort of socially liberal than he is. So they couldn't work together. So I noticed that everyone is becoming more open. It's just about like the rate at which they do it when it comes to social stuff.
Yeah. Things have definitely changed. People switch parties all the time, whatever. Like I said, where we're at right now, I kind of feel, I watched a video by Tim Pool a week or so ago. And I did comment on, I was like, wow, this is awesome because, he actually feels like I kind of feel right now where he said he's basically without a party. Yeah. Like he doesn't feel like he has a party anymore because he feels like the left has gone too far left and pushed people like him out, and the right, obviously there are going to be some fundamental differences there. And he just said, he said that there are a whole bunch of displaced old school liberals that are just like, what do we do now? And that's kind of where I feel like, at least where I'm at, I don't want to speak for Geeky, but Geeky speaks for herself.
I just,
She's like, I'm thinking of brushable hair.
No, yeah, that's right. I was just sitting here thinking about brushing my hair. No, I don't. Sometimes you just, you get to a place where you feel like you don't fit anywhere, and I don't think it's just people who lean left that feel that way. I think there's people who lean right that sometimes feel that way too. And I think it's just because I think it's more to do with the fact that it's just everything is about politics. I mean, you walk on the street, it's politics. You go to the store, you hear people talking politics. You go to the internet, it's politics. You go on TV, it's politics. You look up a book, and guess what? We're politics. And I just think people are just. I don't know. I think people are just tired of it. Just stop already. My God.
I agree.
It's like it's like a civil Cold War. It's like we're not actually lobbing bullets at each other, but there's definitely some tension.
I think it's actually what it is that so the internet's pretty new, and the fact that everyone is on it now is actually extremely new. And I think that what's happening is that everybody's online. I mean, like everyone just about has access to the internet, unless you live in China where you have your own special little internet that only you guys can use. But everybody else is on the internet, and they're all putting out their politics. And I think that most people before we had the internet didn't really think about politics very much. I think the average person just doesn't. But now everyone is being kind of, I wouldn't say forced, but I would say they're being coerced or they're being encouraged to discuss politics. And they're finding that the political conversation is not as simple as it was. I voted for Obama twice, too. And, my views haven't really changed since then. But I've identified, I guess, like what I really believe, whereas before I wouldn't have really thought about it too much because I just was like, and I still believe this about politics. I think politics are less important than people think they are, and I think that it's actually a reduction of a more important conversation about ethics and morality and all these other things that I think are way bigger than politics. And I think that ultimately that's what if I want to talk about important stuff, I want to talk about that. And I think that you can see, in my opinion, and maybe you guys let me know what you think about it, but you can see that politics is a reduction. It doesn't do it justice to a story or a piece of media or entertainment because it's too small for what it is. Like a comic book that's like political propaganda is it's a lot less entertaining than one that isn't, but does speak about things that are much like larger. Like I don't know if you know what I'm saying. Like someone could make a comic book or a movie like I don't know, like name an SJWE movie that came out, I guess, like Ghostbusters, I suppose, that is trying to make a statement about women empowerment and feminism and stuff. And then someone else could make a film like Iron Giant there's no politics in it per se, but it's got a lot to say about the human condition, which are more important and more impactful things, and do you see what I'm saying? Like stories that are bigger and more important.
Subtlety. I think subtlety is lost anytime you try to hammer home. And if you put the ideology first in your entertainment, then everything is going to be sort of, I guess, contorted to fit that message. Again, going back to like Christian rock or chick tracks or whatever. And then, that's no offense at all to Christians. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying like that sort of methodology. And Geeky's looking at me like, would you stop with that? It's like, no.
I'm just like, because I'm a writer, and I always say to people, it's like you do a good story first, and the story it comes first, and the story is good. You can put stuff in there that you believe, and not like hit over the head with it, but you can put stuff in there, but the story and the characters have to be good first. And I think what's going on is, like you said, their ideology is coming first before the story, and it shows. And I think that's the problem.
Your goal is no longer to connect with people on a real level or to entertain. Your goal is to convert. Your goal is to preach an ideology and convert with that goal in mind. It's not enough just to tell a story or just show people as they are. You have to, and especially we see this in comics too. You have to have these ridiculous, virtuous characters because you can't have people be real because you have to have that idealized version of a character.
Yeah, they stop being human beings and they become mouthpieces for whatever it is you want to yell about. And, people can see that. That's what I mean. Like the stories become about the message, about the goal, which is to essentially change people's minds on something. I think a good story doesn't try to force you to change your mind on something. I think a good story presents a situation and then invites you to think about it, and does so in a way that, you know, like, for example, did you guys ever see, did you guys watch the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies? I assume you did.
Oh, God, yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, do you remember Winter Soldier?
Mm-hmm.
I think Winter Soldier is a really great example, because what fundamentally that movie is talking about are things like, is your freedom worth the security that you get from it? Now, in a way, they do try to answer that question, but it's still a good way they present it. Like, the Russo brothers weren't trying to get people to vote for, you know, Rand Paul in the 2020 election or something. They basically were just like, well, this is... Sorry, that was an email I just got. They were basically like, okay, this is the situation. We think this would be a really interesting and riveting story, and this is what we're going to talk about, you know? And, like, what are you willing to sacrifice to, like, make that right? And that's what people love. That's what people resonated with. But they didn't try to say, you know, like, force in some, like, political narrative that is just really, like you said, ham-fisted and obvious, but the characters are presented, you know, and then the characters are presented as flat because they just exist to deliver the message, as opposed to being real people that you could believe exist.
Yeah, and I think, you know, when you said that, you know, not thinking about, you know, drawing your own conclusions about movies or TV or whatever, I think that's the difference. The difference is, you know, I think a lot of people, they don't want you to think. They want to do the thinking for you and tell you what you have to think.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And if you don't think the way they want you to think, then you're a bad person. We're going to appeal to the fact that you don't want to be listed as a bad person, so you're going to listen to what they say. Guilt. And I think, yeah, the good stories, the best stories always stay with you. Best characters stay with you. Years later, you think about them and you think about situations, and it makes you think. And you know, how is this? You know, how would I handle that? Whatever. And I think when you have good characters, that's what resonates with people. And then, but if your characters are just there to be, you know, there's a propaganda, you know, with a character face on it, then you're like, oh, I don't even care because you're preaching to me. I don't care.
Yeah. And it sounds, I mean, it sounds really hard, you know, to use entertainment as propaganda. But again, you know, media is incredibly powerful. Movies are incredibly powerful. Games. I mean, we spend more time in front of screens now, you know, than we do looking at each other. So yeah, absolutely. You know, it's something to take advantage of.
Well, I was going to say too, something else I find interesting for all the people, like, especially we see with Star Wars and Ghostbusters and She-Ra and things, for all the people that are writing these articles saying about, well, you're all, you know, if you don't agree with us, you clearly are alt-right this, or you're, you know, this or that. What's funny to me is, okay, but the movies exist in other countries besides our own. So if it failed universally, it can't all be because the misogynists, not right Nazis
and Trump supporters, right?
You know?
Those South Korean Trump supporters. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, you know, it was all their fault. You know, you can't keep blaming it on the same people, even if it's like something like it's a worldwide release and it failed. Maybe there's something wrong with your story. Maybe it wasn't good. Maybe people are bored. Maybe they don't identify with it. Maybe they just didn't want to go because they didn't think it needed a new movie. Yeah. But it can't all be because they're all misogynist Trump supporters and you know, men. And
look at Star Wars. Like, Star Wars bombed in China. Like, China loves our movies. They love our movies. They'll go watch freaking Pirates of the Caribbean. They'll watch Transformers, and they're, you know, Transformers are god awful movies.
Wait,
will they watch
shit
out of them?
The fourth Pirates of the Caribbean, the one with the mermaids, the really low budget one.
They made a lot of money in China.
Yeah, made a lot of money in China.
I'm sure that's the only thing propping
sure they ate it up.
Honestly, is China. But China won't have anything to do with Star Wars. Like, they don't care. They don't care. Ghostbusters, they obviously couldn't run it over there because it deals with paranormal and the afterlife. And
they changed the name of it.
They even changed the name of it to try to trick people into thinking it wasn't a Star Wars movie, and it still bombed.
Oh,
what do they call it again?
Ranger Solo.
Ranger Solo. They call it Ranger Solo.
Oh my God.
It would have done better over here as Rangers. I would go see Ranger Solo.
I would have gone and saw Ranger Solo. Well, I did see Solo, but you know.
Okay, I got some super chats, and then I want to ask you guys a couple of quick fire questions, and then we can get out of here. So, let's see. God, I lost my place. Chris Stewart gives us Crawl Dragon gives us $15 and says, it seems to me that pop culture is in a weird spot where it's stuck with deciding whether it wants to appeal to new audiences or appeal to the nostalgia of older audiences, and you can't do both. Well, I don't think you can do both at the same time. So I would say, well, I'll put it this way. I think it's really tricky because they tried. I think there was that anime version of Thundercats that I thought was really good, but it didn't do very well, or at least it didn't do well enough for them to continue. So I don't know. Do you guys want to say anything to that statement?
Well, they probably do better than Thundercats Roar.
Right. Yeah, I think it's a balancing act. But again, what's the purpose of resurrecting an old IP if you're going to alienate the existing audience? Just make something new. I mean, if it's going to be brand new, to this generation anyway, you don't have the stigma of having to appease old fans. Just start fresh.
Yeah, the only person who pulled it off so far, the only show that's pulled it off is My Little Pony. In fact, it did even better than the original did. But that's the only one, so that means it's the exception and not the rule. Okay, so yeah, I think that then I do believe that people use nostalgia because, again, it's like I said, it's a shortcut to get to that original audience right off the bat, but they also just, tear their hearts out because there's nothing in it that is nostalgic. It becomes only in name. I guess Voltron... Well, I didn't watch it, but I guess that's good too. So
DuckTales is good. DuckTales pulled it off too pretty well.
Okay, so there you go. There are a couple of exceptions. I would say it's just tricky to do. People got to be. If you love the original, you'll probably pull it off. Maybe that's what you need to. You need to love it and not think that this is useful to your ends. All right, so
you need to remember it. You need to have actually been around when it was out. That's the problem, I think.
You got people working on these shows who weren't even around.
Yeah,
when the shows were on. It was like, it doesn't mean anything. There's no emotional connection, so it means nothing to them.
One other thing too, I will say, because someone made this comment, I was just going to say this. One of the reasons why a lot of these old shows were so popular in the 80s, though, was because they were effectively 20-minute commercials to sell toys, and you and so like if you don't sort of cross market them with a toy line, you're not going to get the child audience as quickly, if at all, because, well, at least I don't know if kids even play with toys now, but when I was a kid, when I was a kid, I wanted the toys, but maybe now you do it with like a, I don't know, like a tablet game or something instead. Like you have to find a way to sort of cross market the product. And of course, if you're going to do that, then, the characters should be like something that you'd want to see as a toy. So, okay, Chris Stewart gives us $5 and says, "But see, there are things that are vaguely political if you squint, like a character's gender. I mean, stuff completely apolitical, like translation." I don't know if that came out a little bit. I know what you mean. People are going to politicize what they're going to politicize, but you don't have to. You don't have to like be so overt. Like I'm actually a comic artist and I'm working on a book with a female main character, and one of the goals I have is to try to make it as believable as possible with a female character, but without doing the girl power pandery bullshit. Like, how can you make this appealing to girls without making it look like you're, directly trying to say, "Hello, fellow girls," or "Hello, girls, this is for you and only for you." Like, you just have to do a good story, and that's what I'm focusing on. Zeranx gives us $5 and says, "It's likely conservatives would be pulled towards the left because human beings are collective by nature. The struggle is to work towards individualism." And when he says, then he corrects himself. He says, "Not collective, I mean communal." Yes, that's true. Crawl Dragon gives us $10 and says, "I think people who identify as being either left or right are doing themselves a disservice. People are far too nuanced for labels like that, even in a complex label like libertarian." I agree. I think that it's been really oversimplified. I don't think anyone is just left or just right. I think that everybody's got a little bit of all of that. Most people are moderate, and most people don't even think about it too much. They just say, well, I like X, I dislike Y, whatever, And then lastly, Luca Wanshu gives us $5 and says, "You don't feel like you have a party? Welcome to my world, kid. Nothing personnel." Okay. So, speaking of good stories, so give me some recommendations on some stuff that you've liked, because we've talked about a lot of stuff that we don't like. So, what's the last thing you saw that made you cry? And I'm going to give it to Geeky Sparkles first because I'm assuming she has an answer to that question.
Oh wait, do dog videos on Facebook count?
No,
Because
no,
no little animal. It makes me cry.
Oh,
I'm trying to think. I'm sure it was a movie. Usually it's dog videos on Facebook.
K-dramas.
Oh yeah, well no, I haven't cried over K-dramas. I'm trying to think of one that made me cry. I can't think of one that made me cry lately.
Last, like maybe it's not recent. Maybe it's really old. Like something that really had an emotional punch. Did you see any like? I only say that because I mentioned Iron Giant earlier, and I think like when I first saw it, that was like the last thing I saw.
I got mine.
Iron Giant makes everybody cry. I was just Superman. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Coco.
Oh yeah, Coco makes you cry like crazy.
Yeah, I actually teared up at Coco, and I'm not a crier, but I was in the theater. I'm like, oh my god, this is like the most heartbreaking.
I cried everything, so it's hard to really remember like the last specific thing because it's like, oh my gosh, it's a commercial and I'm crying. Like there's a soldier video on Facebook and I'm crying. I mean, he tries to ban me from Facebook because that's all I do.
It's all sad dog videos. It used to be funny cat videos, and now it's all sad dog videos and politics.
I'm trying to.
It's like that's all it is.
Anything I've cried about recently, I can't even think of anything.
Did you ever see my wife? I remember she cried at Kubo and the Two Strings.
Oh
Kubo
yeah,
was
that's
sad
a good
too,
one
yeah.
too. We saw it recently too.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were very like thematically, they were very similar. I thought Kubo and Coco.
Yeah, they definitely like it because it was about family and stuff. But the way I think Kubo is better. But because of the way it ended, like with the grandfather being redeemed and everything, I was like, oh man, I did not see that coming. Like that was great. You know, it was,
forever.
Yeah, I thought it was gonna end like Disney villain. He dies somehow or he gets swallowed up or something. But no, they took it. They went further, and I was like, wow, these guys at Leica, man, they need to make more money. Okay, so let's say the last thing that you guys watched that got you like really pumped and excited, like you like that you just thought, man, this was the shit. Like, I don't know, Into the Spider-Verse. I don't know if you saw that.
We haven't got to see that yet. We have so many movies, and we usually go, but we've been so busy, and the weather's been bad, so we haven't been able to go to the movies too much. What can we watch? Pump this up.
Yeah, or it could have been on Amazon or some shit or Netflix. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think like what was the last thing that like really got me like, oh my god, that was amazing. I thought it was funny when we went to go see Infinity War and all the college kids were crying because they didn't know that everybody's gonna come back to life. Laughing. I was like, the comics have been around for like 25 years. Come on, they're all googling it. You've all the phones bust out.
Oh my gosh, yeah, they were crying. They were in the theater crying, and they're freaking out
over Spider-Man or just everybody.
Just everybody, like they were like freaking out. Like it was a college town, so we were like one of maybe 10 people like that weren't college kids, and they were just freaking out and they were crying.
They're crying. They had their cell phones out.
You read the comics? And they're just like.
I like kind of being kind of a dick.
What has pumped you up lately? I can't think of any.
I can't really think of too much. It's like
I'm on the spot. I can't think when I'm on the spot, and I'll think of it like 10 minutes from now.
I'm sorry, I put you guys on the spot.
No, it's okay. I'm just trying to think. Like I can't remember the last movie I like walked out of theater and was like, oh my god, what did I just watch?
No, but he means like that you feel like I can kick ass and take names.
Yeah, kind of like when it could be like that. Like I remember, I'll just give an example, but it's old. But I remember when I first saw the first Blade movie, or when I first saw The Matrix, I wanted to kick somebody's ass when I got out. Like not I wasn't feeling violent, but I was like, fuck yeah, like you were just excited. And like with the tear jerky stuff, it was it's probably like Kubo and the ending to that. I remember Iron Giant did it. There was something else I saw. I can't remember. My wife and I watched Band of Brothers together, and that's a World War II show. It was on HBO. It's very good, and there was some great bits like towards the end. I won't spoil it for anybody, but if you've never seen Band of Brothers, that's like the shit, and it's like one of the manliest shows I've ever seen. And I love a manly ass show, so that's a good one. I'm a JoJo fan, so
The movie, my mind went blank. I can't think of it. The name of it. We just watched it long ago. The one movie where they have it's the book and they have like the game. Ready Player One. That was one that was fun. Because only because it was cool watching all the 80s stuff on the screen. You're like, hell yeah!
But Ready Player One. Yeah, that was like a nostalgia fucking
Yeah, it was
diabetic.
It just made me happy.
Diabetic attack. Yeah.
I'm like, is this where we're going? Like I joked before on one of our streams, I said, is this we're going to be in this endless cycle of recycling the 80s? Is this what our future is going to be like?
Yeah.
Like we're just going to get stuck in this loop.
What's sad to me is I'm sitting here trying to think of what's maybe most excited lately, and it's been like the Godzilla trailer.
Yeah, Godzilla looks pretty badass.
Avengers trailer, Spider-Man trailer.
So it's like trailers for
movies,
things.
it's the trailers. I'm like, yeah.
I think the biggest like pleasant surprise I had like from the MCU, I think Thor Ragnarok for me was pretty cool because I'm like, I did not, because the first two Thor movies were kind of boring. The first one was good. Second one I didn't like, and the third one I'm like, it's not good. But that was like very like people joked it should have been the Masters of the Universe live action movie. Very unexpected humor. You gotta love the Led Zeppelin. That was. But yeah, I don't really walk out. I mean, I sit there and think about like that's pretty sad. I don't walk out of the theater much anymore, being like super pumped. Like you don't get that Star Wars original trilogy feeling much anymore when you walk out of theaters. Like, yep, it's another movie down. What's coming out next week?
Yeah,
it's a blockbuster next week.
Yeah. No, I hear you. Well, actually, one of the reasons why I was asking is because it seems like the media that we get doesn't have the emotional weight that it used to. I mean, even companies that have like historically never missed a beat, like Pixar, have been slipping. At least to me, anyway. I wasn't crazy about Incredibles 2, and I really wanted that to be good because I love the first one. It's like my favorite Pixar movie. And Disney has become really formulaic in their films, and so I'm just not seeing that much stuff that really gets me excited. And I was wondering what you guys have seen. Not that I haven't seen anything good lately, because I saw Annihilation. I thought Annihilation was really good. I still get to see some good movies, but I don't know. It just doesn't seem like it's hitting as hard. So.
Yeah, I think everything's become very safe. I mean, you mentioned Annihilation. I watched it with Squid King, our son, a couple of weeks ago, and that's one of those movies that regardless of where you come down on it, it definitely doesn't answer things in a nice. So you will find yourself thinking about it days later, trying to sort it all out, and we don't really have, because it kind of reminds me of like the Kubrick films. You never really have. A lot of times you don't really have these like really clear-cut answers, and I just think Hollywood now, they just want to package you something. It's like fast food. They just want to give you something that's palatable. It's for this week. Next week we got another blockbuster coming out, but they're not really taking a lot of chances. They're not really taking a lot of chances.
No, they're very safe.
Yeah, and I mean, with the movies costing as much as they are now, obviously, they can't really afford to, but you don't see many chances. So it's either, we recycle everything endlessly, we create sequels endlessly, or we homage, like with, Ready Player One, the 80s. Hey, that was a tried and true thing. We get Spielberg in there. He's tried and true. But yeah, I've seen a lot of like really, like, I remember we went to go see Sky Captain.
I like
Sky Captain.
I like Sky Captain. I have that shit. Yeah.
Oh God,
that's
I love
a good
Sky
one.
Captain.
I love that.
That was one of those times when I walked out of the theater, I didn't know what to expect. I'm like, holy shit, that was a good movie. And then it was so different. It was so different. And then it never got a sequel because it didn't make any money because it was like too different. Nobody went to go see it.
I would love to see a sequel to that.
Yeah, I mean, I would in a way, but if they never made one and this is it, I would be okay with that too. Because you almost don't want, like, I guess for me anyway, I wouldn't want a bad sequel because it would tarnish everything else. Like, I'm to a degree, I like Sky Captain. I actually have a big thing for movies based on comics that are good. It's a lot of garbage, and movies that are based on, or they have the feel of old like pulp type movies and the pulp stories. So I have the Phantom, I have the Shadow, and I include Sky Captain in The World's Tomorrow, even though there was no written, like, I don't think it's based on anything. I think it was just an original idea. And it was all done on a pretty, like, it wasn't like a huge budget, all on a green screen with, like, what, 4 actors? Like, really, like, very few people are actually in it, And, I thought it was a fun ride, It's just, that's it. Like, it doesn't have to be, I guess, it didn't have to be Schindler's List. It just had to be Sky Captain. And I like Sky Captain. It was fun.
Yeah, you just don't see it much anymore. And I think that's why everybody went, so nuts for Annihilation too, was because it was a very different, what, it didn't tidy everything up with a clean ending. There's a lot to think about, multiple interpretations, and we don't really see that. Even horror movies are kind of like really by the books, I think now, compared to what they used to be.
Those were books, but anyway.
Well, no. I mean, they were very loosely based on the books, but But again, it's like we don't. It's almost like Hollywood doesn't want us to think. They don't want us to think. They want to spoon feed us everything.
I think that in a lot of ways too, they don't have they have a lack of talent now. Like honestly, it's just like there are fewer people as good as they used to be, because some things are really hard to do. Like I will give it. I've said this. Like good comedy is difficult. Good horror is really difficult, especially as there's more stuff that comes out. You have to come up with like new ideas, and a lot of stuff's been done. Like if somebody says, "Oh, I'm going to make a zombie film," and everybody's going to roll their eyes because they've seen a million of them. So how are you going to make it different? And but I do think that there are people who can still do it, and there have been some very good horror films, but they're very few and far between, especially these days. And then there are some that are just genre breakers. They don't even fall neatly into any category, like Brotherhood of the Wolf, for example, which I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that or seen it. It's a French movie, but it's like all over the place. It's like horror, it's martial arts, it's got a little bit of romance, it's like all over the place. And I think that in a way, like the people, the masters that we used to have, we don't have anything like that. Like we don't have a more John Carpenters. We don't have, Spielberg's not, he's not a spring chicken, right? It's like we're losing these people, and there aren't people of the same quality that are stepping up. As there are some, but they're not as many. And then a lot of the people, like the guy who directed Annihilation, he also made a movie called AI before that. I don't know if his projects are going to be like, they might always be that kind of movie where it's like almost art house, but high budget and science fiction.
Yeah, so. I think that's a good point. I mean, it does seem like we don't have like, everybody's like, oh, this generation's Spielberg is J.J. Abrams, who basically apes Spielberg. No. Yeah. I'm like, it's like there again. Spielberg and Lucas and that generation, they came from a very specific time and place. Sure. And I'm just disappointed. I guess I'm disappointed with, where are all the 80s kids? Why aren't we, taking back movies, taking back comics, taking back, it just seems like we're not. I don't know. Well,
yeah, I don't know. I think that's a good question. Like you would think that people who grew up in that period would even have more of a creative spark. I don't know where they are. So that's actually a good question that you raise. Again, only a few people are going to make it, but maybe we just need to, maybe, I don't know, maybe Hollywood just is giving big budgets and like blank checks to the wrong people. And maybe there are really good directors that are making really good work that aren't getting recognition, and we don't even know about them. Like a lot of the what happened to the kid that made that, or the people, who put together that fan-made Star Wars video that Disney originally tried to take down, and then LucasArts allowed them to bring it back up? You guys talked about that, right?
Was that Star Wars Theory, the Vader film?
Yeah, it was the Vader film. Yeah, the Vader film.
Yeah, they got a strike for the soundtrack. They actually, Warner Chappelle gave them a copyright strike for the soundtrack, and they took it down. Or no, I'm sorry, they gave them on station to. Yeah,
but that company's notorious. We've had run-ins with them before. They basically go around and they find anything they think they could get money. They're hired by places like Disney, these big companies, to go around and basically copyright strike people so that they get more.
That's what they do all day.
So they get more money. So we've had run-ins with them too over stuff, and so they went after this guy, and even though he had permission. And so that was a big old.
Yeah, I think, just, talking about the internet and kind of where things are going, I think a lot of, this generation, even starting with, 80s kids, it seems like more and more people are going the DIY route and not really going through the studio system. I think you have a lot of really smart, really creative people that are, going to the internet themselves or doing it themselves. Right. They're going outside the system. So maybe that's the big difference is, if George Lucas or Steven Spielberg were, making movies today.
Starting out
today, they would be probably starting out on like YouTube or something.
Probably.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think that is where things are going. Okay, I want to finish the super chats because I got a little distracted. Luga gives us $5 and says, Identity Crisis from DC was great for comics. If you want a good animated movie that's tragic, try When the Wind Blows. It's about an elderly couple. I've never heard of it. Luga Wanshu gives us $5 again and says, surviving a nuclear fallout and radiation poison taking them. Land of the Lustrous was a great show that hit me hard. Magus Bride makes me cry. You guys heard of any of that stuff? I don't know any of that stuff.
No. Okay.
So I don't know. Yeah. So Land of the Lustrous, Magus Bride, and When the Wind Blows. Luga gives us another $2. She likes this channel, and she says, "My dude Rodan finna come, boy." Talking about the Godzilla movie because Rodan is supposed to be in it. Yeah. There was a lot of monsters. I think Monster Zero, that was my monster. Also, King Ghidorah is supposed to be in it too. So, Xerax gives us $2 and says, public schooling took away 80s, 90s kids' creativity. I don't know. Hard to say. I do think that there is something to be said about the current state of education, but that's a whole other rabbit hole. And unfortunately, we're out of time. So I guess the last thing I will ask is okay, really quick, because this is what you guys do. So I think I'd be remiss if I don't ask you about it. What is one thing in comics that you guys recommend people get? If you've done any comics reviews lately.
Oh no. Currently or?
You mean like
or ever. Yeah, like a book or a series or a title.
God. Okay, that's hard. Well, Dark Knight's a must. Dark Knight Returns. I think gosh, I like a lot of the European stuff. I like a lot of like Hugo Pratt. I like his stuff. That's really hard. I didn't expect to be asked.
Oh, I know. I throw some curveballs at people sometimes. Toy. Right now, right now, what do you think? If somebody is a collector or if they have kids or whatever? What's a toy that you guys have unboxed or reviewed that you're like, oh, this is a good product?
Definitely not the poopsie products. I don't know, it's a good product. I think we have a lot of but I can't really say because I've been buying a lot of old toys. Like I wouldn't just bought a bunch of She-Ra stuff from the 80s. I'm trying to think, what can you think of?
Well, you can still get that.
Huh?
You could still get that stuff?
eBay, Mercari. It's like I keep getting toys there. I just bought, these isn't from the 80s, but I bought him a bunch of Transformers today. So, I'm trying to think, what's a good toy you could think of off the top of your head real quick? Off the top of my head,
I really like the new Voltron. I thought it was pretty cool.
The new Voltron?
How voices and everything in it.
Cool.
Yeah, so weird. Like a lot of the toys too are kind of falling in the cycle too, where we're just kind of recycling.
Yeah. All the girls' toys anymore are poop
slime and poop, like all stuff that used to be
poop.
Yeah, it's all stuff that used to be like boys. Like we had the slime pit, from He-Man. We had Garbage Pail Kid cards and all that.
Now I remember that.
We're playing with it. They're playing with the gross stuff.
Oh yeah,
now.
slime and poop. But definitely don't buy the poopsy stuff. But our kids are on their iPads all the time. Yeah, mostly.
That's their thing. They love the little Roblox figures, but they buy them not for the toys, but the codes.
Yeah, like Lego
inside.
I'll tell you what I want. I want Mattel to bring out. They had the large She-Ra dolls, and they showed them at PowerCon. They showed them at the New York Comic Con stuff. I want those. Those are the things I want. You can't buy them in the store, but that's what I want.
Do they have brushable hair? They have brushable hair?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Okay. What is oh man, I lost it. I had something. And I no, it's okay. Maybe it'll come back to me later. What is I asked you about a toy and what about a cartoon show? What's a good one? I know that you end up having to talk about stuff that you don't like because the politics makes you. But what's something that you do like?
Oh, recently we watched DuckTales.
DuckTales is
Dragon
awesome.
Prince is good.
Dragon Prince is freaking awesome. I love Dragon
Our
Prince.
Daughter recommends. Well, she's. I haven't got to watch much of it yet. Hilda, and she was liking Carmen Sandiego quite a bit too.
The new one, the one where she's like a super spy and she's not a bad guy and stuff. Okay.
Yeah, she loves that. Well, she likes Miraculous Ladybug too, so I'd recommend.
Yeah,
that
but Dragon Prince I think for me was the big winner of 2018. I didn't know what to expect from it, but it was the closest thing to to Avatar: The Last Airbender. Obviously because we had a lot of same creatives on it, but it was what Korra should have been, in my opinion.
Is it like a martial artsy type of thing? Is that why it's called Dragon Prince?
No, it's medieval. It's fantasy world. It's we've got a couple of kids trying to take a dragon egg or save a dragon egg. It's complicated, but it's funny. It's everything that Avatar: The Last Airbender had going for it. The young cast, the humor, a lot of these quirky characters and everything. It had going for it. It was very good. One of the writers of Avatar worked on it. It felt a lot more like Avatar than Korra.
But it's also a good example of how you can get a diverse cast in there and get diversity in there and have it in there without ramming it down people's throats and making it the main reason the show. The show is about the show, not about that. It just happens that they are.
Yeah, that was a good point. Like, I mean, it's never really addressed. Like they actually have a very diverse cast, but it's not like they're not there just to be the token whatever. It actually, everything makes sense organically in the story, and it's not like they ever call any of it out.
To get diversity without being it's good.
Yeah, and that's the way to do it the right way. Like in the real world, where it's just different kinds of people and they get together and hopefully get along and do things. But it was a really good show. It was on Netflix. Now it's a weird thing because Dragon Prince came out like a month before She-Ra, and we had like a complete 180 reaction to She-Ra. But again, She-Ra was a pre-existing IP where Dragon Prince was something new.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you go, Dragon Prince. And where can people watch that?
Netflix.
It's on Netflix. Okay. Is it like a Netflix original?
It comes out next month, I think.
Is it a what?
It's a Netflix original?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. All right. Dope. All right. So Catherine Scully gives us $5 Canadian and says, who else thinks Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is one of the best movies ever? I remember that. Yeah, that's a great movie. I remember people lost their minds in that one in the theater. It was like we'd never gotten Kung Fu flicks before. Luca gives us $2 and says, Hot Wheels Battle Force 5 was awesome. Okay.
I think Squid King seen it. That was his. Yeah, that was his.
Really? It's so weird. They could make a cartoon out of Hot Wheels, but when I was a kid, they made a cartoon out of Bigfoot. So I guess there's that. Well, anyway, I don't remember what the other thing was. I guess it wasn't very important, but I think I'm going to let you guys go. We don't want to make these too long because then people don't watch when they're over an hour and a half. But I hope you guys had fun coming on and talking to us here at HBR.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, and hopefully, I don't know if maybe we'll do it again sometime. If maybe we can talk about something that's going on or whatever, if that interests you. Yeah, okay, cool. So I want to thank our guests. That is Kneon with a K and I'm sorry, the Geeky Sparkles. I put all the contact info on the screen so people can see it. I have your Twitters there, as well as Real Clownfish TV's Twitter and your YouTube channel, so people can go and subscribe. Look at their content. They got lots of stuff. It's mainly related to geek stuff. It's like what they want to talk about, but unfortunately, the politics of the day will drag you into its hole because that's the world we live in. This is 2019, and I don't think it's going to get better anytime soon. But as long as, people like stay reasonable, stay positive, and just try to enjoy what you have without letting people ruin it for you, I think that we'll be able to get through it. Because our leisure time is all we got. It's all we got. So we got to make the most of it, in my opinion, anyway. Again, thanks, guys, for coming on and watching us. Please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. Also, leave us a comment. What do you think about the conversation? What do you guys remember in terms of like the last piece of media? It could have been a video game. It could have been a book. It could have been a comic, whatever, that made you cry, that made you get pumped. Something that you think that people should be watching that they're missing out on, whether it's a show or a film you want to recommend or a game that's like, getting buried under all the CODs and Battlefields and Fortnites that are already out there. Let us know in the comments section. And yeah, thanks again for coming on. We'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one.